Good morning, 早上好. All right, so we are back in the Gospel of John. 我们继续学习约翰福音, and we're getting close to Jesus' crucifixion, and it's still the Last Supper. 然后我们准备学习耶稣的他的最后的晚餐跟他的门徒, and he's telling them that he's going to leave. 然后他在告诉他们他准备走了. That means he's going to die. 他准备去世了. However, his disciples have no idea of what he means. 但是他的门徒们他们都不懂他的意思是什么. And so Jesus goes on from saying that he goes, they're all eating together, and as they're eating together, they're very happy. Everything they have, everything they want, everything that they need is right there. They're very content. It's a room with 13 men, and they're all eating together, and it's very peaceful. 然后他们都是一起吃饭，有13个兄弟们在一起，然后有很多快乐，很多平安，他们都没有什么害怕的，没有什么着急的问题, and there's nothing that they're worried about. There's nothing that they're afraid of. And from this, Jesus then shifts what he's talking about. 然后耶稣开始准备改变他的主题, and he talks about how he's going to leave this world. 然后他跟他们说他准备走了. And then he says that once I leave, your hearts will be filled with sorrow. 然后他说了我走了之后你会什么？他说了 Let's look at verse 20, 20节. It says, your sorrow in verse 19 he talks about their sorrow, and then he says that your sorrow will turn to joy. No one will take your joy from you. But before that happens, that they are going to be filled with sorrow. 然后他说了20节, 他说你们将要忧愁。然而你们的忧愁要变为喜乐。没有人能夺去你们的喜乐。然后在19节他说什么？他们会忧愁。为什么？因为他要走了。And so think about this. I was thinking about this last night. 然后我昨天晚上在思考这个问题. I was like, why is it that big of a deal? 然后为什么是这么大的事? Because Jesus says that you're going to be filled with sorrow. And a lot of us says, when we just read this, it's not that big of a deal because you go from chapter 16 to chapter 17, and the narrative goes very, very fast. 然后我觉得为什么是这么大的问题？为什么耶稣就是这么说？因为16章，然后我们继续读到17章，没有什么大的感动。However, think about this from the disciples' perspective. 但是如果你是他的门徒，你想一想, for 3 years, 3年, Jesus was with them for 3 years. They were with each other for 3 years. And for 3 years, Jesus never did anything wrong to them. 然后3年他们在一起，这13个兄弟们在一起，然后这3年耶稣没有对他们不好。Jesus never got in an argument with them. 耶稣从来没有跟他们吵架。Jesus never wronged them in any way. 耶稣从来没有对他们不对。Jesus never did anything like, even us as friends, Jesus never stole anything from them. 耶稣没有偷他们的东西。Jesus never deceived them in any type of way. 耶稣没有什么骗他们。Jesus never led them astray. Jesus never taught them to do anything wrong, to harm one another. 耶稣没有带领他们走错了，迷路了，没有让他们伤害了。But think about this. 但是你想一想 how many of our friends have hurt us? 我们的朋友们伤害过了我们多少次？ How many of our friends have maybe it was intentionally, maybe it was not intentionally, but they've deceived us in some way. They've led us astray. They've caused us to do something that maybe at the time we thought was okay, but then later on we find out that it was actually wrong. 然后你伤过了你的朋友或者朋友们有没有令到你做错了、学错了、做错了？让你以后你可能那时候觉得没有什么错误的，但是以后你就发现了，嘿，我刚才做的是比较不对的。I know I shared probably 2 months ago a story of when I was in middle school. 我知道我大概2个月前分享了一个故事，然后我在初中的时候 ，and when I was in middle school, 我在初中的时候 one of my friends, I went with 2 guys. We went to a store, and one of my friends was like, hey, you know what? Look at all these magazines. These magazines have free gifts attached to them. He goes, and they're free, which means that you don't have to pay for them. So we can just take the gifts and leave. We don't have to buy the magazines. but we can just take the free gifts, kind of like a free sample. 然后我朋友就我和2个兄弟们一起去一个超市，然后我们看到很多like 小书，然后这哪里的小书都有免费送给你小的礼物。然后我朋友说了，你看，就是免费的送给你的礼物。那如果我们不买这小书的话，我们可以拿走这个免费的礼物，因为是免费的，不需要花什么钱。And at the time, I was thinking, me and this other guy were thinking, yeah, he's right. You can't buy this. There's no barcode. 我和那个另外一个兄弟说，嘿，没错，你买不了这个东西。因为这个没有什么价格。And so me and my friend, me and this one guy, 我和这个朋友 we took a whole bunch, 我们拿了很多。And the other friend who told us, he's like, I'll wait for you guys at the door. 我就是告诉我们的朋友怎么做，他说我在门口等你们。And he's like, and make sure you get some for me too. 然后他说你记住要哪一些是送给我的。And he's like, I'll wait for you guys at the door. You two get a whole bunch, and then we'll leave. 他说我在门口等你们，你拿了很多，然后我们一起回去，好不好？ And so when we got to the door, that's when we got arrested. 我们到那个门口，就是很多警察来逮捕我们。And so that there, like, we were friends. We were good friends. 我们都是非常好的朋友。But that one friend led me and this other guy astray. 但是这个朋友让我和那个另外一个兄弟做错了，迷路了。And so for 3 years, Jesus never did any of that. 这3年，耶稣对他的门徒从来没有做错了。Jesus, so he never did anything, like they never did any type of illegal business together. They never tried to cheat people out of money. 他们从来没有做违法的工作，没有骗别人的东西。They didn't, whether it was they were fishing or they were out healing or they're teaching, they never try to do things to raise illegally to raise money. The miracles that they did were legit. Nothing was fake. The teaching was sound. There is no deception in the teaching. There is no fraud in the teaching. 然后呢，他在长大的时候没有什么做错了教训，没有什么骗钱还是骗别人的东西，然后他们做工的话都是就是没错了，没有什么违法的等等。And so for 3 years, they're accustomed to this. 所以这3年就是已经习惯了。And they know that, Jesus is not going to teach me to do something wrong. Jesus is not going to lead me astray. 然后耶稣不会教我不错，他不会让我迷路了。And I know that Jesus is honest, whether it comes to business or his miracles or his teaching or the way that he lives or even the friends that he hangs out with. 然后耶稣是真实的，不管是他的教训、他的神迹，或者他跟朋友们在一起。And if Jesus says, let's eat tonight at this person's house, we know it's going to be true, and we can trust him. We're not going to have to worry about, are we going to go to a dangerous place or something. 然后我们完全相信耶稣。如果他说今天晚上我们在哪里吃饭，这个人的房子吃饭，我们都可以去哪里吃饭，没有什么不好的地方。And so his 12 disciples right now trust Jesus. 所以他12个门徒，他们完全相信他。So now think about that. 你想想 if this was you and you had a friend like that, 然后如果这是你，然后你是有这样的朋友 and we're talking 3 years, every single day they were together, 然后3年，每天他们都在一起。How close would your relation be with that person? 你跟这个人的是这么亲近呢？ Of course it'd be very, very close. 肯定是超级亲近。And so think about that. 你想一想。And so when Jesus comes to get arrested, think about everything that started to go through the disciples' minds. 所以他们开始来，很多军队开始来逮捕耶稣的时候，你想一想他的门徒是怎么样的。So it's no wonder some of them got really afraid and scared. 所以他们超级害怕的话，我们都开始了解。Think about that. 你想一想。And so this is why Jesus is saying that for a short time you're going to be filled with sorrow. 就是为什么耶稣说短时间你们有忧愁。Why? Because at that moment, that's all they know. 因为那时候他们就是这样的了解。And from their point of view, they quit their jobs. They left their families. 所以从他们的看法来说，他们已经辞职了，要离开他们的家人。They left everything behind. 他们都离开了 to follow Jesus. 为了跟随耶稣。And so when Jesus is saying all this, they don't really know what he's talking about. 所以耶稣说了这么多的话，他们不太了解。They're thinking, okay, right now, we're in this room, we're eating together, everything is going great. Jesus, what are you talking about? We're going to be filled with sorrow real soon. 然后我们都在一起吃饭，都是很喜乐、很快乐的事。耶稣，你的意思是什么？你在说什么？干嘛？ And so then Jesus says, but however, I want you to know that even though something very bad is about to happen in your guys' eyes, I just want you to know that sooner or later, afterwards, your sorrow is going to be turned to joy. 然后他的意思是，我也想你们了解，记住这句话。现在是很大的坏事，但是以后这个坏事会成为你的喜乐。And so Jesus says, your sorrow will be turned to joy. 以后你的忧愁要成为什么？变喜乐。And as Christians, 然后在基督徒的时候 you know, us as Christians, we read the Bible, and it's broken down from books into chapters and the verses. 我们读圣经的时候，就是有很多，在里面有66本书，很多章，很多经文。And so it's easy for us just to, as we're reading this, to go, okay, from chapter 1 to chapter 2 to chapter 3, and we can read an entire book in a whole day if you wanted to. But in reality, it's years that have passed by, and we might just spend 2 hours when we're done reading. When in context, it's actually all this time has passed by. 所以我们在读圣经的时候，可能花1个小时、几个小时读完这本书，但是这本书可能过去了很多年了，明白吗？ And so Jesus is talking about from their perspective at that moment. 然后耶稣那时候说是对我们来说是现在我们的看法。However, so what can us as Christians do? Because we read like this passage, especially in chapter 16, these few verses, it's we just read it and it goes so fast. And one moment Jesus is with his disciples, the next moment he's being crucified. And it's in this short, just a couple pages in your Bible, and the whole thing's over. When in reality, this was a few days. And during those 3 days, for his disciples, for them, it was probably absolute darkness. Like everything just fell apart so fast. 然后呢，我们就是读完这几个章的话，可能你的圣经里面就是几个页，然后就是读完了，然后耶稣已经钉十字架、复活了等等。但是对他们来说，是这几年是特别的黑暗。So what can us as Christians right now, because this has already gone past, and so Jesus, when he says to his disciples, your sorrow is going to be turned to joy, like that does it really matter a lot to us right now, because it's already something that's already passed. And Jesus right now is talking specifically to his disciples. Does it really matter to you and I right now in 2024? 那因为现在是22年，2020年，对吧？那这个事情已经过去了，而且耶稣是对他们说的是只有3天的事。就是他们的忧愁。那我们可以学到什么？因为这是为了他的门徒们，因为我们那时候也不在那里，对吧？ I think us as Christians, what can we learn from this is that our Christian lives are the same way. 我们基督徒可以学到什么？我们基督徒的生活就是也是一样的。Is that God? No, it doesn't matter however long you've been a Christian. If you become a Christian today, or if you're going to be a Christian for many, many years, know that there will be things that God will bring in your life that are going to bring sorrow. And some of it is stuff that God planned out specifically for your life. 我们基督徒可以了解什么？有时候的忧愁是上帝的安排给你们的，给我们的，而且是为了我们的好的。And sometimes we'll feel like whatever it is, that whatever the darkness is that we're in at that moment, that it seems like I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the next step is. But we should always realize that no matter what happens, that it's not going to be forever. 就是那时候我们可能感觉我不知道下一步是什么，我现在感觉我在黑暗里，我也不知道以后有什么事。 But we should always know that no matter what, that God is going to turn that around for good, because it always happens in the Christian life. 但是我们应该这么了解，不管我们遇到什么忧愁的话，什么黑暗的话，以后这个也要成为我们的喜乐。For example, 就比如 when I remember the clearest example for me， 对我来说最清楚的、明确的例子是什么？was that when I got arrested， 我在逮捕的时候 at that moment I thought everything was over， 那时候我觉得都是结束了。And then after that, I remember when I was arrested, I was sitting in the chair. 我在那个椅子坐下 and I was listening to all the questions that the police officers were asking. 然后那个这么多的警察就问我很多问题。And most of the time I was just listening because they put a mask over me and they locked up they put a strap around my chest, my legs, my waist, and then they handcuffed me both hands to the chair, and I was hunched over. I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't move. I couldn't really speak that well either because I had a thing over my mouth. 然后呢，那时候我就是他们逮捕我的照、我的胃、我的左右手，还有我的他们也给我口袋，没办法可能没有说那么清楚的，而且我的手他们也是逮捕的，所以我没办法走了。And I remember at that moment I was thinking, I remember one thought that I had very clearly was that because they were asking me questions for like 3 hours. 他们问我3个小时，问我这么多的问题。Remember at one point I thought, I was thinking, Lord, if you want to have your 2 angels like open this door and get me out of here like you did with Peter when they were in jail, that would be great. 然后我再想一想，耶稣要不要让你的要不要让2个天使开这个门给我走开吗？跟你让你的彼得还有保罗在监狱里的时候，你可以给我一样做的吗？ And I was thinking, like you did with Peter and Paul and some, when you freed them from the jail cells, could you do that for me too? Well, of course it didn't happen. 但是当然没有这个事情happen 就是发生了。However, what did happen is that eventually I had to leave. 但是以后有什么事我需要离开，我需要走了。I remember when I went to Malaysia, at that time I thought that this was the next step. 然后那时候我觉得就是那上帝生我在这里吗？ And then I got the virus in the eye. 然后呢，那时候我的眼睛感染了。And I almost lost my eyesight. 然后呢，那个眼睛如果那时候没有去医院的话，他们说了以后我的眼睛都会死掉了。And so there was, during that time, for me, those couple of months were very, 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 very dark. 然后那时候过去的这个几个月里的话，是对我来说是我的生活的最黑暗的时间。And I can only imagine that that's probably kind of like what his disciples experienced, but theirs was only for a few days. 然后呢，我觉得就是他的门徒可能也是有这样的感觉。Because at that time, I thought, even though mine was more than 3 days, it's a couple months, I thought I started thinking that there was, some of my thoughts were like, that God had rejected me from being his pastor. That's why I got kicked out. And now I was like, now what do I do? 然后呢，那时候我有的时候有想法是，上帝拒绝了我做他的牧师，就是为什么他把我赶出去？我有时候有这样的想法。然后那时候我觉得，那我在干嘛？我要做什么？ And so his disciples, remember, that's one of the reasons why during those 3 days, Peter went back to do fishing. He's probably thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do now. I was following this guy, now he's dead. 然后呢，就是为什么这3天彼得就是回去他之前的工作，因为他也知道，我也不知道我要做什么，因为我把我所有的东西就是为了耶稣，为了跟随他，然后现在就是我现在什么都没有。And so when they saw Jesus afterwards and he's raised from the dead, that's why when Jesus encounters some of the people, when he's walking, his disciples, when he's walking down the street and they see him, they don't recognize him at first. Because they're not expecting Jesus to be alive. They're like, he's already dead. And they're in a conversation. 这是为什么耶稣在走路的时候看到他几个门徒，他们没有发现就是耶稣，因为他们知道他已经去世了。 But then when he's raised from the dead, they're filled with joy, and they realize that hey, he's back. 然后他复活之后，他们这么喜乐，因为他就知道他回来了。And so a lot of our struggles in life are the same way. 所以我们的生活的问题，我们生活的困难的事差不多一样的。And a lot of times that doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's one day, if it's a couple days, if it's a couple years. That sooner or later it's not going to be forever. 不管是一天还是一周还是几年，不会是永远的。And sooner or later, God turns our bad situations around, and there's always, as we say, like a light at the end of the tunnel. And God does that for pretty much all of our situations. 然后上帝就是对他的孩子们，做我们完全的问题，他会怎么做，怎么改。And a lot of it so that we learn how to trust more. 都是为了什么？可以更相信上帝，可以更信靠他。And trust him. 然后呢，相信他的带领。And then Jesus compares in verses 21 through 23 the sorrow that they're going to be feeling, the anguish. He compares that to like a woman giving birth. 然后他在21到23节，耶稣给他们一个例子可以了解，跟一个妈妈准备生孩子。Verse 21, 21节 says, A woman, when she is in labor, has sorrow because her hour has come. But as soon as she has given birth to the child, she no longer remembers the anguish for the joy that a human being has been brought into the world. 妇人临产的时候，因为她的时候到了，就愁烦。但她既生了孩子，就不再急的那苦愁。因喜乐生人道是上来。And so you might be thinking this is not, you read this, you might think that this is not a good analogy, but think about what Jesus means. Jesus has nothing, he's not talking about the physical pain here. He's talking about the duration, how it goes from anguish to joy. That's what he's talking about. And he's given just a clear, easy to understand example. 然后耶稣的意思现在不是痛苦的问题，疼不疼的问题，他的意思是短时间你是有这个问题以后，这个问题成为快乐的事。然后他给一个例子，他们都懂了的例子。It says, therefore, you have, verse 22, 22节 you now have sorrow, but I will see you again, and your heart will rejoice, and your joy no one will take from you. 你们现在是忧愁，但我现在你们的时候，你们的心就喜乐，并且这种的喜乐没有人能夺去。And so, why did Jesus say that right now? He goes, but now you're already starting to feel sorrow. Why? Because they're all looking at Jesus like, Jesus, what are you talking about? So now they realize that, hey, Jesus is being serious. The atmosphere in their room is changing. They went from eating and talking and sharing whatever they're doing. Now it's serious. The whole atmosphere is shifted in the room. 然后那时候那个气氛完全改变了，因为他们刚才他们在吃饭，很喜乐的。但是现在是很严格。耶稣，你的意思是什么？为什么你这么严格说？ Verse 23, 23节 says, And in that day he will ask me nothing. Most assuredly, I say to you, whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give to you. So now he gives them a promise. 然后耶稣说了，到那日你们什么也不问我，我实实在在告诉你们，你们奉我的名，圣父所赐的，他必赐给你们。And this is a promise, 就是一个承诺 that Jesus gives to all of his children. 就是耶稣给他所有的孩子们。Everyone that follows Jesus, 所有的跟随耶稣的人 Jesus gives us his promise. 耶稣都给我们这个承诺。And this promise is what? 就是这个问题是什么？ That whatever difficulties you're in, whatever you need, whatever is at that moment in your life, whatever you need his help with, maybe it's evangelism, maybe it's finding a new job, maybe it's just giving thanks, maybe it's something that you're dealing with in your heart, in your life, maybe it's a relationship issues, whatever it is, ask it in Jesus' name. 然后不管是什么问题，你的心里的事 你的工作的事，你的关系的事，不管是什么，我们都要放耶稣的名。Why? Because this is a promise that Jesus is giving to his children， 就是耶稣给我们他的孩子们他的门徒们一个承诺。Doesn't matter how bad your sorrow is， 不管你的忧愁是这么厉害。Ask for joy, ask for deliverance in my name。你祈求，奉我的名，祈求上帝给你喜乐，给你帮助。It'll happen, it'll happen, it'll come。以后会发生了，以后你的帮助会来到你的对面。And then Jesus shifts from the anguish to joy， 然后耶稣把那个忧愁成为喜乐。Why? Because of the resurrection。 为什么？因为他要复活。And I know that in a couple of days is Christmas。 我知道几天后是圣诞节。And Tuesday is Christmas Eve。 星期天是星期二是平安节。 And Wednesday is Christmas。 星期三是圣诞节。 And the whole reason why we celebrate that, the world celebrates this day, is because we remember Christ's birth。 为什么整个的世界会这周做圣诞节吗？因为我们要记住耶稣的生活，他的出生的时间。And so it's not saying that Jesus was born on that specific day, because he probably most likely was not. But we have a day set aside to remember. The date itself isn't that important. What is important is that we remember Jesus' birth. Why did he come? Why did he come here? Why was he born of a baby? Why is he born of a virgin? All of these questions are very, very, very important for every single person to ask. 那个你可以说了，但是耶稣不是在12月25号出生的，这个不是问题，因为这是小事真的。大事是什么？为什么耶稣来到这里？为什么耶稣是从处女的出生的？为什么耶稣来到这里是成为一个宝宝吗？ Why did he become a child? Why was he born? Why can't he just come down as a man? 为什么他必须出生的？为什么他们不可以来到这里是一直是成人吗？ Why? 为什么？ All of these questions deal with what's happening right now. 所有的问题就是关于现在的事。And so this is the whole reason why, this is the only reason why I have a Christmas party. 就是为什么我做圣诞 party. It's because I want people to realize and understand that everywhere you go in China, right now, a lot of people talk about Christmas and the world, especially in America. 所以不管在中国你去哪里，很多人会说圣诞节的东西，在美国整个的地方都是。And that's why we have, you have Christmas trees. People wear green, white, red, these colors. And there's Christmas lights and all these different types of foods and drinks. Like Starbucks here has all this Christmas stuff going on. Why? 就是为什么很多地方有绿色的、红色的、白色的这三个颜色，就是圣诞节的颜色。为什么星巴克有很多圣诞节的吃的、喝的东西？因为都是为了圣诞节。And the whole reason why it started, the reason why we have it now is to remember Christ's birth. 就是为了记住耶稣的出生的时间，他出生的故事。It has nothing to do, and why do we give presents? 为什么我们送礼物？ Because the three kings that came to meet Jesus gave Jesus gifts. 因为这三个国王那天晚上来见面耶稣的出生的地方。送给耶稣礼物。 So that's why we give gifts now. 就是为什么我们现在送礼物。 And it all goes back to the Bible. 都是关于圣经有关系。 So why, that's why there's so many Christmas songs that deal with salvation, death, sin, the birth of Jesus, and the prophecies. 就是为什么很多圣诞节的歌是关于耶稣的出生的，关于预言，关于死亡，关于喜乐。关于我们的拯救 because all of it has to do with Jesus 都是关于耶稣 and that's very, very important 这是非常非常重要的 and so it's like that's we can have a Christmas party and give gifts and stuff like that but if we don't talk about Jesus, if we don't bring that up, then it's meaningless. 那我们可以做上当街的 party 送别人礼物等等，但是如果没有分成意思的话，那这个是真的没有什么意思。Because the gifts originally were given to him， 因为本来礼物是为了送给他。And why do we usually put a star on the top of the tree? 为什么把那个星放在那个树上？ Why? Because the star led the people to where Jesus was born. 因为那时候那个星让所有的人知道耶稣在哪里出生的，很多人让那个星领导他们去耶稣出生的地方。And so all of these things, they have important roles. Why they're usually angels we put angels on the trees. 那为什么树上有很多天使吗？ Because when Jesus was born, a lot of angels appeared in the sky and they started singing. 因为耶稣出生的时候，很多空气有很多天使开始唱歌。And so there's all this stuff has reasons. There's reasons why there's stars, there's angels, there's gifts. All of this goes back to the birth of Jesus. 就是为什么有天使、有星星、有树、有送礼物等等，都是关于耶稣出生的故事。And the whole reason why he was born was so that he could die. 那为什么他出生了？是为了他的死亡。And his death is for his resurrection. 他的死亡是为了他的复活。And ultimately, it's so that we can be saved from our sins. 然后最重要的是什么？我们可以被他得救了。And so all of it is extremely important. 都是非常非常重要的。And it all goes back to Jesus' birth. 然后都是关于耶稣的出生的。Look at let's look real quick. Let's look at Luke chapter 2, verses 10 through 12. 我们看路加书第2章10到12节 It says, And the angel said unto them, Fear not. So an angel appears to some shepherds. 所以你看到有一个天使，他说，那天使对他们说，就是对谁说？对有一些的牧者人说，因为他们那时候害怕，他说，不要惧怕 For behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people, for unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you, and you shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. 我报给你们大写的信息，是呼唤万民的，因今天在大卫的城里为你们生了救主，就是主基督。你们要看见一个婴孩抱着布，我在茅草里，那就是给你们的记号。And so the angel appeared to deliver this message. 所以这个天使信息对他们信息为什么给他们而神设给他们这个信息 ？And the angel, that was the angel's task. And then afterwards, there's a star, and the star leads a lot of people to where Jesus was born, and they let them know. 然后那时候那个天使给他们信息，以后有一个在那天晚上有很大的星星，带领很多人去领导他们去耶稣的出生的地方。And when they arrive, they what? They realize that this is the king, this is the Messiah. 然后他们到时候看到耶稣。宝宝耶稣，他们都知道什么？就是我们的弥赛亚，就是我们世界的王，国王。And then they all give homage to him. They all bow down to him, and they give him gifts. 然后他们都是什么？开始敬拜他，敬畏他，然后送给这个宝宝礼物。And all that's why we have Christmas. 就是为什么我们做圣诞节. That's why every single country in the world there will be people this week that will celebrate Christmas. 是为什么在所有的国家，这就有很多人会过去的这个节日。And so that's why we spent so much time trying to find a good song for tonight. 就是为什么我们花了这么多时间找比较适合的歌。Because a lot of people that'll come tonight they don't know. 因为很多人今天晚上要来的话，很多不懂不了解。a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, 一个月半之前, when actually Timothy and MJ were here, not sure Timothy MJ 在这里, and I asked them, I said, if I ask you guys, how can I pray for you? What do I mean? 我问他们，如果我问你一个问题，我说 How can I pray for you？ 我怎么为你祷告？ What does this mean？ 就是什么意思？ None of them knew， 没有人知道 except for the Christians， 除了我们基督徒。But all the other ones, none of them knew. And so that's like the most basic thing. Like if you go in America and you ask someone, or you go to anywhere, most places in Europe or in Canada, maybe not anymore, but before, you ask them, how can I pray for you? Most people know what that means. 大部分的人他们都知道是什么意思。And they'll give you a response. 然后他们回复你。And but that night, none of them knew. 但是那天晚上他们都是一直在看我，没有人跟我说了，没有人回复，他们都不懂。And so that's why things like this are important. But also God always works and God always moves. 然后但是那是上帝会给很多人特别的大的感动，在他们心里做工。You know, I'm still the one that amazes me the most is Lily. Just 3 weeks ago, 就是 Lily 给我最大的惊讶3周前。You know, the first time I met her was a month ago. 就是我第一次见面她，第一次认识她是上个月。And we had a Saturday night. We were at the university. We had a huge picnic thing at night. 然后那天晚上我们有一个演餐在晚上在那个大学里面 and many people came. 很多人来 and she came because I think someone else invited her. 然后她过来是因为别人邀请她过来 and you know, she was at the time she was in the group, but then everyone started sharing about different stuff. We were going around and then she shared something. She mentioned that she was, you know, LGBTQ. 然后我们都开始分享，然后她那天说她是 LGBTQ 什么什么的。And then afterwards, I didn't think anything of it because a lot of people I only meet once, and I never ask people for their WeChat unless they ask me. 然后我没有问别人给我你的微信，除了他们问我给我他们的微信，然后我就加了他们的微信。But I think someone put her in our group. 我不知道是谁，但是别人把她拉进入我们群。And then she ended up 3 weeks ago, she came to one of our Sunday night events. 然后3周前她又来参加我们星期天晚上的聚会。And the second song we started singing, I could hear, I wasn't looking at her, but I could hear in the back, I could say, is that Lily singing? She started singing. 然后她开始第二首歌开始跟我们唱歌。And then what I did was that night after we finished, I started messaging everyone that came, private messaging them. I asked them, like, hey, you know, how can we make this better? You know, what did you like about this? What didn't you like about it? And I asked them, I said, please give me suggestions. 然后呢，我们结束的时候，我开始私信给所有的人问他们，嘿，你今天觉得今天晚上怎么样的？有没有建议哪里我们可以改好？哪里有不好的什么的？ And when you do this, most people they won't say anything that's bad or they'll say, oh, it's really good. This is pretty much the answer everyone gave. But I wanted more. I'm like, what can we do better? Because I know a lot of them are not Christians. And a lot of them don't understand. 然后我问他们有没有建议，他们大部分都说是挺好的，没有什么需要改的什么什么的。And then, but Lily, she kept saying, she said, oh, she kept calling me child of Jesus. Lily, 她继续说，哦，耶稣的孩子。And I was like, why does she keep saying this? 然后她为什么他们这么说？ And then she goes, I think it was really, really good. She goes, I hope one day I can become a Christian. 然后她说，我希望有一天我也可以成为基督徒。And then from that, I just started sharing the gospel with her. 然后我那时候我开始跟她分享传福音。And then 2 weeks later, she's like, you know, everyone knows her story. She broke up with her girlfriend, and then she came here and she got baptized. And she's like, I want to follow Jesus and everything. And like that was just, it happens in such a short period of time, in a couple of weeks. 然后我们都知道她的故事，她跟她的最近女朋友就是分手了，为了跟随耶稣，然后她上周洗礼，所以就是过去的时间很快。But that's the whole reason why we do these things. 就是为什么我们做这样的活动。And so for tonight, 就是然后今天晚上 and so even though it might only be a couple of verses, 今天晚上可能只有几个经文 it's not that long, and it's not going to be a sermon, 然后不是讲道 it's just sharing. We're going to sing a Christmas song and a bunch of other things. 要唱一个圣诞节的歌， But that's all God needs. 但是上帝只有这么少的机会。You know, and and who knows? 然后我们没有人知道。And I know there will be other people that will probably get saved tonight, or that from this will be saved later on. 然后我知道从今天晚上以后肯定还有几个人信靠耶稣。And so that's the whole reason why I do that. And that's how the church grows. And that's why Jesus here is saying to his disciples, you know, for a short period of time, you're going to be filled with sorrow, but that sorrow is going to turn to joy. 然后耶稣说对他的门徒说，这短时间有忧愁，但是以后你忧愁有成为你的喜乐。And us as Christians are like that. 然后我们基督徒也是这样子。You know, we weren't there. 我们那时候不是没有看到耶稣的那最後的晚餐。And we don't understand exactly what his disciples went through emotionally, mentally, spiritually during those 3 days, because we're not them and we weren't there. 然后我们没有那么懂他的门徒这3天的他们的态度，他们的信仰，他们的脾气，他们的那时候他们的问题是什么？忧愁是这么厉害，不太懂，因为那时候我们不是他们，而且我们没有跟他们在一起。But we can relate， 但是我们可以了解一点。Because all Christians go through this. 所有的基督徒我们都要遇到忧愁。But God can take our difficulties like he did with the disciples and turn them into the joy later on. And then they'll forget. I mean, they won't forget, but it won't have that big of an impact because now they're in the state of joy. 然后他们不会忘记了，但是他们忧愁以后没有那么大的事，因为他们现在在喜乐里的。And when you become a Christian, it's the same way. 你成为基督徒的时候是一样的。You know, we don't forget what our old self was. 我们不会忘记了我们的老人，我们之前的人是怎么样的。But now that we're in the state of joy with Christ, whatever sorrows we had before, difficulties we had before, God has removed. We don't forget them. They're still in our memories, and maybe we still suffer some of the consequences of those actions. But God can turn it into joy. 但是我们不会忘记了我们之前的忧愁，但是上帝可以把它成为我们的喜乐。之前你的老人，你过去的什么事，你的事情，你之前的坏事有什么不好的结果，可能一辈子跟随你。但是现在不是那么大的事，因为现在你在耶稣里面的喜乐。And so, but for unbelievers, that's why some unbelievers will end up taking their lives. 就是为什么有一些的非基督徒会自杀 ？Because they're in a state of, you know, they're in darkness. They don't see a way out. They don't see where's the joy gonna come from? 他们就是在黑暗里，他们觉得我没办法脱离它，除了自杀，因为他们没有什么上帝的承诺、喜乐。So that's why Jesus came. 就是为什么耶稣来到这里。And he came and he was born at night. 然后他在晚上出生的。In the darkness, 在黑暗里。He's the light. 他是光明。And so this is very, very, very important. This is what we hope to accomplish tonight. 就是都是非常重要的。然后希望今天晚上可以有非常好的结果，肯定。I know there's already a couple of people that I believe are very close to becoming Christians. 然后呢，我觉得已经有几个朋友们可能比较快真的信靠耶稣。So we need to pray and we need to always be diligent and never give up. 所以我们要真的继续为这个东西祷告，要认真做的，而且永远不放弃。Let's pray. 我们祷告。Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this Christmas week. 然后天父，我们很感谢这圣诞节的周。Lord, let's also just pray for tonight's party. 然后就要为今天晚上的 party 祷告。And Lord, just pray that you would save, because there's going to be a lot of unbelievers coming. 然后就要请你来得救，因为今天晚上有这么多的非基督徒来参加。Lord, just that you be gracious and merciful. 然后就要请你赐给我们你的恩典，还有你的平安，还有你的帮助。And just allow us to see much fruit. 然后帮我们教会看到非常多的结果子。 我奉你耶稣基督的名求，阿们。